they were also viewed as a good tool for receiving military training. So a lot of these Ukrainians, they would join various German formations. These various police battalions, for example, exceeded in brutality during the Holocaust. And they were also inspired by it. They saw that mass murder was used by a victorious state as a tool for political goals and ethnic cleansing. So they did, you could say they did learn from that in a way. And later in 1943, during the spring, they started attacking Polish villages in Volhynia. The first case is taking place in February 1943, with dozens and hundreds of Polish civilians slaughtered in this repetition of the Holocaust in a way. It was the same genocidal practices that came into play. And then it all culminated during the summer of 1943 in Volhynia, with the so-called Bloody Sunday on July 11th being the climax of this frenzy, with more than 100 Polish villages being attacked across the region, and probably somewhere along 10 to 15,000 Poles killed in a single day. Later on, these massacres would move from Volhynia to Galicia. However, with the Poles forming a larger percentage of the population there, they didn't take on as much or the death toll wasn't as high, even though it was very high in Galicia as well, probably well over 30,000. Volhynia being a smaller, lesser populated region and with a smaller Polish population, so the percentage of Poles killed in Volhynia was much higher than in Galicia. Jerzewski himself viewed all of this with horror. He saw that his life mission had been completely ruined. He was far away from what was happening, though. He was in Warsaw, and he had joined the Polish resistance. He was one of the co-creators of the Biuletyn Informacyjny, the main press organ of the Polish Home Army, and he continued in that role for the rest of the war. Once the Soviet Union came in, crossing the pre-war Polish Soviet border in Saryń in what is today Ukraine, back then southeastern Poland, in January 1945. Now Poland faced this new threat of, instead, after a couple of years of German occupation, it was time for the Red Army to come in. Jerzewski decided that, as I mentioned in previous episodes, he started his conspiratorial career in 1915 in the Russian Empire. So for him, this was nothing new. He decided to continue in his role, serving in the resistance against the Soviet Union. However, he didn't take a fighting position. He was quite an older man at the time. His main contribution was in the sphere of propaganda war, so to say. He also took in information about the Soviet system, about the Soviet atrocities, and described it and condemned it in various publications that were circulating underground. The Soviets very quickly realized who he was, his former role as the governor in Volhynia for 10 years. They knew that he had a lot of information about, because being the governor of Volhynia, this was also the border between Poland and the Soviet Union at the time, and the Polish military intelligence was quite interested in the disintegration of the Soviet Union and even Russia itself into its constituent ethnic parts. So they had this project, the Prometheism project, where they supported various national movements. So, for example, the Ukrainians living in the Soviet Union, or the various Ugro-Turkic tribes in Siberia, or the various Turkic tribes in Central Asia, Kazakhstan, and so on. So the Poles, they would send agents that would travel between the borders, Volhynia being one of those places, meaning that the governor was also involved in a lot of that secret work. And he would also take in reports, finding out what is going on in the Soviet Union. For example, he was very well informed about the Holodomor, that was this starvation famine that was targeting especially the Ukrainians in 1933. He simply had a lot of dirt on the Soviets, and he had already proved that he was willing to work against them. He had spoken out publicly in these underground publications, and simply put, the communists were after him.
Adam, as usual, the clock in the corner of the room has defeated us. I'm going to have to ask you to pause there, but we will pick it up next time. I've had to ask Adam to pause, but fear not, if you join us next time on Poland Daily History, as we hope you will, we'll pick up the story. Until then, thank you very much for watching.